Chad, thank you so much for coming on the show to talk to us here. We've known each other for a while. We have an incredible partnership with the University of Utah Health at Silicon Slopes that we've really enjoyed. We've got some incredible announcements coming very soon around that, things that we've been working on for, 5-6 years?
For a long time. It's time.
It's cool to see the culmination of all that hard work and all of that effort from so many folks being realized, and we'll talk about that a different time. How long have you been at University of Utah Health?
Going on about 10 years now.
Okay.
So, 9-10 years.
What brought you there?
Well, the people, the opportunity. I've been in healthcare for most of all of my career. Then an opportunity was given to work with an integrated system that had the hospital, had the clinics, had the physicians, all the providers, all the clinicians, and work together to try to make something unique and really benefit the community. And that is what did it.
Yeah, that's incredible. What were you doing prior to University of Utah Health?
So actually, I started my career in DC.
Really?
Yeah. I was on Capitol Hill. I was working on the Senate side.
I don't know if I knew that. With who?
With Senator Hatch on the committee. So he was
cool.
The ranking member with the Health and Human Services Committee. And then I went to the House side, worked on the House side, and that's actually when the Clinton Health Reform Bill came up. And that was my bill for my member. And I got to go to a lot of interesting meetings, read the entire bill that was drafted, and got very interested in healthcare. And that's what did it. It's a complex problem, a lot of moving parts, but affects everybody's life.
Yeah.
And so I thought that's something that I can really get my teeth into, and possibly add some value. So I came back to Utah, worked with Governor Leavitt in the Leavitt administration, and worked on health policy issues. And then in that process, we created the Children's Health Insurance Program, or CHIP.
Yeah.
And that was a real. I'm honored to be able to say that I was the state's first CHIP director. It provided a solution for kids that didn't have an opportunity to get health insurance. Otherwise, their parents didn't have employer coverage available to them. They didn't qualify for Medicaid. They were right in that donut hole that made it difficult. And so we provided this opportunity. It was a federal state funded program that really helps out. And I'm really proud of that. And then after that, I went to the private sector. Spent some time in California with Anthem. It's a large insurance company. Came back to Utah, and then eventually got the opportunity with the University of Utah in this integrated system.
Yeah. No one would really think during the 90s would think like, hey, this is where we work really well together.
Yeah.
Right? This is the era.
Yeah.
And then you had the Reagan-Tip O'Neill era, which, but I think what they talk about is they actually met with each other. Like Gingrich would meet with President Clinton. Even if he was just trying to impeach him, they would meet with each other. Tip O'Neill and President Reagan would meet with each other. We don't see that at all. What is wrong? What is going on right now?
Yeah. What happened early on during the Gingrich time, they said they needed to be back into their districts and into their states. And so typically the lawmakers would live together and they would socialize together on the weekends and afterwards. And when they started, going back to their districts all the time, which is a great thing, mind you, but that fractured the ability for them to really live together, work together, and have that kind of camaraderie that they used to have. Now and I think the advent of a lot of the media is somewhat polarized now. It used to be where you would have somewhat objective media in the middle, but now you listen to your own camp. And, and so if you're caught fraternizing with the other side, sometimes it's difficult for you politically. And so that was kind of in that era that was happening at that time. And those started to get frayed, those emotions. And so we started to become more polarized. Unfortunately, I think. I think there's, I think the people that are elected in their own right. Most of them well-meaning, well-intentioned, really want to do what's right. Right now, people get clicks, and people have to do what they have to do in order to get noticed. So it's not necessarily always about solving the problem or doing the right thing. It's about how do we get noticed, and that's unfortunate. And it didn't really used to be like that.
Do you get the sense that some people in Congress, maybe not all, maybe all, are really just like social media influencers? Like there's this idea where it's like, what are you actually doing? Like, is the job to like get attention?
Well, I think some have that as a goal. I mean, they, after, they may want to get a job like that or something in the media. But I think the vast, vast majority are really there to try to do the right thing. Unfortunately, now with the rules that have changed, it's easy for one or two members to really throw a monkey wrench into the process. And so I think, again, I still think we have great representation. I think we have people that are well-intentioned. We just have the process now where a few people that do want to try to, run in front of the cameras can disrupt the process, unfortunately. And you're speaking on the national level there, I think mostly, not necessarily at the state level, right? That's not really happening at the state level that I can see.
Yeah, the state level is a whole different story, and I'm sure it has its challenges, but it does seem like we at least still talk to each other and work together. Some of that is, it's a pretty one-party state also, right? And so that's possible to do when you know who's going to win every single time. But you have decided to get into this fray for the first time ever, as far as I understand, as a candidate yourself. What made you decide to do that? What district are you running for? And why? Why are you doing this?
Many people have asked that question, and it's a lot more involved than I thought before filing. I'm running for House District 42, the state legislature, and that's pretty much East Sandy, some Cottonwood Heights, and it's a great district. The incumbent, Robert Spendlove, has decided not to run for re-election, so it's an open seat. And given that it's an open seat, it's an opportunity to be able to let your voice be heard. I've always been interested in politics, especially policy. I shouldn't say politics, but more policy. When I was 15, I would fill out my parents' sample ballots. And I would do all the research and select the candidates, even the judges and all the policies, and I would give them the sample ballots. And they would go and vote based on how I filled it out. So when I was 15, I personally helped elect Ronald Reagan in 1980. Wasn't eligible to vote, but I got him at least 2 votes.
That's awesome.
And so I've been interested in that. And through my work, both in the federal level on the state, on the Senate and the House, and then back in the state, I've really been able to work with some great people. I've really been able to bring some people together to solve problems. And I want to do that. I want to do that for the district. And I think that there's a need to have people that are there to resolve problems, to bring people together. As I've said to constituents that I knock on the door every night with my wife, and just about all day Saturday. And I say, it's really, for me, it's about the politics of addition, not subtraction. I try to bring people together and not divide people. Because everybody has a voice. They may not have the same letter after their name, Republican, R or D, or I, but we all have perspectives and we all have viewpoints, and they're all valid in our own context. And I want to hear what those are. I want to be able to make decisions based on what the good of the district would be. And sometimes that's listening to all voices. And I think most often it's listening to all voices and then making the decision. One of the things that I saw in DC a lot was the law of unintended consequences. You draft something and the staff would get together with, Hatch staff and Kennedy staff would get together, and we would draft legislation. And sometimes it didn't necessarily always meet the goal of what the folks back home or the people that would be impacted by that decision would have wanted. And I don't want to do that.
Yeah.
I want to hear, I want to listen, I want to be able to understand what the perspectives are, so we don't do something that is going to end up hurtful rather than helpful.
Yeah. What do you learn as you knock on doors every night? That must be a fascinating experience.
It is. It's not what I thought I'd be doing every day of my life for the last few months. But it is interesting, and I think everyone that goes into public office should do that because you hear from those people that are interested and have a voice and want to be heard. And if you're just sending things out and putting up the campaign signs and not listening and hearing and going out, you're missing a key part of what it is to be in politics. To be in politics is to be a representative of the people.
Yeah.
And you really can't have that unless you are reaching out yourself. And if you don't have that desire, and if you don't have that time, and you don't have the energy, it's not for you. So I really do think that, what I've learned is that people want to be heard. People's voice is important, and they have different perspectives. And even though at times, a politician might vote a different way, I think it's fundamental to listen first and act second. If you listen to someone and hear what they're saying and hear their perspective and context, you've respected them. You may vote a different way, but at first, at least you've respected them first, and then you can explain your vote. But if you haven't even listened to them, it's a form of disrespect. And I think we as politicians need to do that. And I learned this. I'm on the board of Utah Foundation. Mm-hmm. It's a public policy research group, nonprofit. It doesn't have any partisanship at all. And every 4 years, they do a survey that asks Utahns, what is the most important thing? It's called the Priorities Project. And it was surprising this year. The number one thing wasn't too surprising. It was housing affordability. But the number two was surprising. It was politicians don't listen.
Yeah.
That was the number two issue that the Utahns voted on. And it was surprising to us all. But when you think about it, it may not be that surprising.
Yeah. Yeah. They don't listen. It's a really interesting thing that maybe we can't say, but there is like this really interesting challenge where the disconnect between politicians and who they serve, I don't think has ever been wider in my lifetime. It's really interesting. And maybe that's not as true, at least in the state of Utah, but certainly at the national level, I don't know that we've ever experienced anything like this, right? It's kind of crazy. Yeah. What are some of the issues? I know like the gondola is a big issue in your district. Maybe you could speak about that because I know that's kind of a controversial. And then I'd love to talk to you about other issues that you have there as well.
Yeah, it's come up. One thing I've learned that the gondola is certainly an issue that some of the voters are very interested in. It's mired in lawsuits right now. There's at least three lawsuits that I know of, and so the actual decisions probably won't take place for many years. But it is an interesting public policy issue in question. The UDOT had 127 proposals that they looked over, and they ended up with the gondola as the number one issue. And I would be interested, if elected, I certainly will have a long conversation with UDOT to understand how that is. The gondola is the problem that it's trying to solve is traffic. And you've got Little Cottonwood Canyon, which is a gem of our state, that canyon, and we want to preserve it and protect it. And they're trying to make sure that traffic that going up Little Cottonwood Canyon is efficient. And right now, especially on those powder days that we all want to get up there, it's clogged. And if happens to be an accident, unfortunately, then it's even worse. So the gondola does provide access. But it comes at a pretty high price tag. I've seen estimates of $1.4 billion for the gondola. And if we're trying to create efficiencies, the gondola, in my mind, may not be the most efficient way. It's going to go about 11 to 12 miles an hour, I understand, if you're thinking about either taking your car or taking the gondola. That
right,
you may not be able to. You may be able to beat the gondola with your car.
Is the idea to decrease traffic because that canyon is so highly trafficked
and narrow? Right. That is the problem
this is
statement.
An interesting.
Yeah, that is the
solution,
problem.
Though.
Yeah. It has support, obviously, from UDOT. It has support from other community leaders. It seems to be a problem that we have to solve, and we have to solve, relatively soon.
Yeah.
So I'm not saying that the gondola is the answer.
Yeah, it may or may not be.
But I'm saying that there is a problem and it needs a solution. And there are critical items within transportation writ large. If the state were given $1.4 billion, let's say, hypothetically, with just an earmark of transportation, would the gondola be the number one priority in all of our transportation needs where we would spend that money? And I don't know. I'm not elected yet. Yeah. I'm just questioning that, and I would continue to question that. Is that the best place to spend our transportation dollars?
It's a big price tag. I think the challenge sometimes that happens with public officials is you do something like that's going to last for a very long time, and you get to be a part of it from the beginning. You probably get your name on it or something, crazy like that. It's hard to I think, turn down something that's going to be around longer than you. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
And so there is this kind of maybe that could be part of the motivation here is one, gondolas are cool.
Yeah.
Right? They look cool. It's kind of interesting that Utah would have one. And, two, it's going to be around forever, but does it actually make sense? I don't know enough about the issue, honestly, one way or another. And it sounds like you're in learning mode as well on whether it's actually the right thing to do or not. But I love the idea of you being able to dig in on that and make that decision, right?
Yeah.
There's something really cool about local level politics to where all of a sudden, we have someone who represents us on this issue.
Yeah.
There's something pretty beautiful about that.
And someone that's kind of new to the issue that hasn't already formed these, entrenched positions.
Yeah.
I'm an analytical person. I get into the details, and I would love to get into the details on this. Right now, if I were, forced to make a decision, no, I just don't see it working the way that it's proposed. Mm-hmm. But I'm not someone that's going to shut out every option just because I make an initial decision.
Yeah.
And so it's really perplexing to me why we've come to this point. But honestly, with the lawsuits and everything else, it's probably not a decision. No one's breaking ground on the gondola right now, and they won't for quite a while, for many years. And so I'd like to take a fresh look at that. I'd like to take, and this butts up right against this district on 42. So it has a great impact on the residents of House District 42, and I'd like to roll up my sleeves and really dig in.
I imagine you're outside of the gondola. One of the bigger issues is development, housing. How are we going to take on all this growth? Every politician that we talk to, or it seems to be the only thing they talk about actually, is hey, here's this growth that's coming in the state of Utah. There's no way to stop it. So how do we deal with it?
Yeah. And that's hit me personally as well. My wife and I have 4 kids, and they're great, but the grandkids are even better. I've got 7 grandkids.
Yeah, I can imagine.
And 2 years ago, they all used to live here in Utah, and now none of them live here. And some of it were, good job here, but some of it was affordability, and they could not find a house that they could really afford. So it was a difficult one. And that's why with the Priorities Project, that housing affordability came in number 1. So I think everybody's feeling that. And, no one's going to manipulate the prices of housing, of course. But what the governor has proposed is that we build 35,000 single-family homes, starter homes in 5 years. And that would be on smaller parcels of land, have a small front yard, a small backyard, but build them closer together, but still single-family dwellings. And prices would come down, allow people that want to stay in the state to stay in the state. And those that want to get jobs elsewhere, that's fine. But one of the things we don't realize is that when we have this housing issue with pricing, we tend to export our own, and they go to another state, and then we import those from other states here. And not that those, nothing against anybody that's come from another state, but we do kind of swap that import-export values, and we end up changing a bit. And so I think that a lot of most every constituent that I talk to is concerned that Utah values stay Utah values, Sandy values stay Sandy values. And so we want to have that housing opportunity for those that want to stay to be able to stay.
How does that work actually? Like, how can the governor build 35,000 houses in 5 years?
Well, he's enlisted a really key advisor, Steve Waltrip, that has used to be in the legislature, is in real estate, and they're looking for the parcels, they're looking for the lands. Obviously, they're not going to. I suppose I can't speak for them, but I suppose they're going to take land that is not developed and put some of those single-family homes.
And the state will own the land?
I don't.
Who knows?
I don't know the details.
Yeah.
I don't know.
It's kind of an interesting.
But
I
don't think the state is going to own the lands, but the state will have some incentives for the development of those parcels.
How important is air quality when you're going around each night?
Yeah. That is another one. I've listed that on my website as one of the issues that I do want to tackle. We've made great progress. Actually, the state has made very good progress in air quality. There are some sources of continued pollution that I think we need to address. But for me, overall, air quality is about education and encouragement rather than enforcement and mandate. I think some states have gone the mandate route, and it's improved, but it comes at a cost. And some of those costs are people leaving their state. And so I think we want to educate and encourage and motivate and let them know what it means, that good air quality and not so good air quality. Those with asthma feel it. Yeah. And, there are days in January, right, that we get the inversion through no fault of our own, right? That's just the way that,
it's geography.
That our geography is. And we have to be careful. But there are days in January that the kids just can't go out and play, right? They can't take recess. They'll stay indoors all day. Some days, weeks of the month, if you're a business and you're trying to hire someone, as you well know, Clint, you probably don't want to have someone come for a tour in January because you may get one of those inversion days that doesn't look as beautiful as all the pictures. Look.
We do Silicon Slope Summit in January, and it's hard.
Yeah.
Right. Luckily, we send all the people we want to impress up to Park City, who somehow gets to avoid inversion entirely,
right?
Which seems very unfair.
Yeah.
But it's always a conversation. It's like, we're gonna have a good day, or we're gonna have a bad day at Summit, and we're trying to bring the whole world here.
Yeah,
it is a thing,
and you have.
Yeah,
and you've done a great job of that.
Well, and you want to bring them here for a variety of reasons. In January, you got Sundance Film Festival, you've got skiing, you've got all these like incredible amenities. But inversion is one where it's like, maybe we shouldn't show that side.
And there's a multitude of alternatives that people have brought up that I've listened to. And I'd love to really analyze some of those alternatives. A lot of it is us, and we just need to know what the best, most effective solution. Some of it is corporate partnerships to make sure that the corporations are doing their part, and some of it is new technology. And we can get some new technology that we don't have to be able to help with the air quality. Those are some, just great and exciting solutions that we could put forward. And I'm excited about that. And I think we'll continue to improve our air quality.
As you walk around knocking on doors, what's your overall feeling of the sentiment of the citizens, at least in your district, as to the future of Utah?
Yeah.
Are they feeling positive or negative toward it?
I think they're cautiously positive.
Yeah.
Right? Cautiously positive. With the Olympics coming, as we expect, they are concerned that we'll have another wave, right? When we had the 2002 Olympics, Utah was no longer a hidden gem. Mm-hmm. And so the world has been coming and the world has been enjoying Utah, and we love that. And we need to plan for that as the Olympics comes again. But we really need to understand what we hold so dear in Utah. And I think that's what a lot of the people that I talk with are concerned about, is that with this continued influx, are we going to change so that we're just another state where people are fleeing from?
Yeah. And
we don't want that. We want to keep the values and principles that we all love about Utah, that we all love about my district and Sandy, and be able to really hold those and invite the world and enjoy our values.
Yeah. Well, I'm always impressed with anybody who puts themselves out there to say, hey, vote for me. I want to dig in and represent you. That takes a lot of courage, particularly now. It takes a lot of courage. So thanks for doing that. One, how are you? When does this thing happen? How are things going? What are your expectations at the end of all this?
Yeah. As far as expectations, I do have to do a shout out. My wife said, let's go ahead and file. And we filed in January, and then we started with the convention, and we went through the convention, and we got, the tied for the most votes in convention. And then now we're in the primary. She did not realize that I would get her to go out every night and all day Saturday to knock with me. But it's been a great opportunity we've both, I should say, I've loved it, and I think she's loved it as well. June 25th is the end of the primary. So you'll get ballots probably in about a week from now. And you'll have until then, till June 25th to vote in the primary. And then after the primary, one Republican and one Democrat will be selected, and they'll go into the general, and that will be November 5th.
Oh, that's great.
Yeah.
Well, best of luck, my friend. Seriously, I'm proud of you for doing it, and wish you all the best. And yeah, that's really cool.
Thanks,
a cool
Clint.
Experience.
Yeah, I appreciate it. It's been a lot of fun. There's been ups and downs, just like anything. I've got to meet with teachers, administrators, people that are just really, really interested in the welfare of our state and our district. And I couldn't be prouder to represent them if I can give them the chance.
It's incredible. Thanks, my friend.
All right.
Thanks for coming in.
Thanks, Clint. Appreciate it.